Right, so here's the question for you. Can you see and hear me? Because this is the third time I've tried to do a stream in the last couple of minutes. The first time, there was no audio. I thought my microphone was plugged in, but for whatever reason, even though it was there and it was lit up, maybe YouTube decided to default to something else, so I couldn't see any of those audio bars. So I didn't know if that was working. So there was that. That was a problem. And then I tried to do a stream again, and then I found my way onto a new YouTube stream interface where it then demanded I connect streaming software rather than using YouTube's own streaming thing. But it looks like there's people joining, so hopefully you can see and hear this one and it's all working. Because, yeah, the problem is quite often is that if you try and set up a stream and it doesn't work, YouTube then doesn't notify people of the new one, and they keep sending notifications of the stream that's not on. So anyway, that's a lot of chattering, but can you see it? Originally, I was going to call this Saturday stream the question mark because I'm losing track of time now. But I'm completely sober at the moment. I don't think it's YouTube, Alex. I think what it is, well, it is YouTube, but it's more where they keep changing features, you know, where they keep saying, oh, you can't use this one anymore, you have to opt to the new one. But then they change where all the buttons go. So you try to set up stuff as you normally do it, and wait, that doesn't work the way it normally does. So hello, Richard. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you'll be all right, Andre or Andre. Keep an eye on it, I guess. And then if you've got a pulse oximeter, use that and see if it works. Right, good, Tony. But yeah, this is the third time trying to set up the stream, because the first time the audio didn't work. The second time, essentially, it didn't want to use my webcam. And Mike, it wanted me to connect OBS or something. So, I'm all right, Henry. As said, for the people who are just coming on, if they got multiple notifications, apologies. It was because the stream didn't want to set up properly initially. But hello to everybody joining. All right, Alex. Yeah, so you're well aware then, yeah. But I think the people who don't make videos don't realize how much it changes. Like, some of those people complain, you know, like, oh, this feature used to be here, it used to be there. But when you're making videos, it gets even more frustrating because you're trying to do something and then you can't find a feature anymore, or they've changed it and it's not as good. For people who've been on YouTube for years, do you remember the video response feature, which was a brilliant thing they don't do anymore, where you could basically have it so if you wanted to, you could post a response to somebody's video if they allowed responses, or you could do a response with permission. So basically, you could have a video and then, like, right before the comments showed up, there'd be a link to another video. That was a great feature YouTube used to do, because it used to mean that you could, you know, do collab videos with people easier. So you could do response videos to them, like if they said, you know, my EDC knives or something, you could do one like that. But no, that's a gone feature now. All right, White Wolf. I've not done loads. It's been one of those days that's dragged a bit. I've not been too bored. I did do one cool thing today. Set up an old Crookes tube / cathode tube and got it working properly. So let me show you that. I've got some pictures on my phone. So for those of you that don't know, Crookes tubes are like the precursors to cathode tubes. So if I just flip this around, I did a little video of it. I might do a full-length video on Crookes tubes at some point, but there you go. Is that playing? There we go. So if it focuses, that's a Crookes tube. So I think that will just keep looping the same video over and over. But what a Crookes tube is, it's the precursor to the cathode tube. You need a very high voltage power supply to run a Crookes tube. But they do generate X-rays when they're then of course they glow amazingly sort of purple or kind of greenish in the dark. But Google's like, do you want to fix the lighting? No, I don't. Somebody's now trying to message me while I'm trying to show a picture. But yeah, if it focuses, that's a Crookes tube with plasma in it. Just reading lots of books, really, and manuals. White Wolf, most of it's all self-taught. Like, obviously, I went to school and everything, but school, I don't think, kind of encourages you to learn that much. I'm trying to think of a good way of summing it up, but for example, basically, like when I was at school, for example, I might have really got into physics and stuff, but the physics teacher I had wasn't very interesting. You know, they weren't very passionate about it. And I think that's what makes the big difference. If you have a teacher that makes it sound really cool and interesting, you might want to learn it. But when it's like just boring and you're stuck in school and you're just looking at your watch, or the clock waiting for a lesson to end. I've got 2 S10s for Shadow. The first one I bought from, I think it was Surplus and Outdoors or Surplus and Lost years and years and years ago. That was a military surplus website. And then the other S10 was at a car boot sale for might have been £10 or £15. Yeah, Alex, it's a good phone. It's a Moto G7, but I've got one of those quite tough cases on it because I'm prone to drop it. No, that's one of the things, Anonymous Angler, I get asked a lot and I don't really have an interest in it. I've got like a Baofeng radio, whatever it's called, one of those Chinese ones that's apparently alright as a beginner one, but I never really got into it. I know a lot of people I chat with on here are really into radio gear and comm setups and that, but it's not been really anything I've been all that interested in. Yeah, the problem I have, Rich, is it's quite convenient sometimes just to film a quick video on my phone and upload it. If I try and upload through the YouTube app, it auto keeps wanting to schedule it for the current day, even when I say I want to, schedule it for the next day. Yeah, $25 for an S6 is good. Oh, tomorrow I ought to get round to filming the video. Actually, it won't be the video you see tomorrow because the video that you'll see tomorrow is on that Soviet scintillator. But I'll do, for the people who asked about it, a video on gas mask glasses inserts. I'll film that tomorrow for the next day. Because unfortunately, they're not my prescription, but I did find some S6 inserts that one of the viewers recommended to me. So although they're not my prescription, I can at least demonstrate how they mount into, masks and all that. George says, back when he was in high school, no teacher about the teacher. So maybe I'm misreading it. So I choose to go to a technology centre for high school and then to a firefighter academy while also being in the army. Well, as long as you got into a career you wanted to do, that's good. But I think the problem I've got with the schooling system, I reckon there's a lot of people who might be really good in certain careers who never get into them just because of the way the school system's set up. I'll probably do a startup video on it, Harris. Check sources in the UK. Sealed check sources are obviously safer for you and other people. As far as I'm aware, in the UK, plutonium is one of the only illegal radio, isotopes in itself because of how strong plutonium is and how good a weapons grade material it is. But I think from what I understand, most basically radioactive elements are legal as long as they're in very small quantities. But then it depends on the element. A lot of it's done and stuff. But if you want to get a really good check source, what you might want to get is just although it's not a really standardized amount, and this can be a bit pricey, but they're really nice decorative pieces, like a bit of torbanite or something, because this is a uranium. Let me get the lid off so you can see that in there. But torbanite is a uranium-based ore. There you go. There's torbanite. Let me put the light on it so you can see it in all its lovely detail. So that's torbanite, if the camera focuses. And torbanite is radioactive. But it looks really nice as well, and it gives off alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. So if you wanted to do isolation experiments, it's not very good for that. But if you just wanted to say, oh, I want to, have something that I can use to test Geiger counters and that, torbanite's really good for that. Autunite is really good as well. I'm saying the main thing that's nice about those is quite often you can buy them from sellers who put them in nice, display cases, so they're a lot safer, I've never had any cold steel swords. I've got a cold steel shovel. And what's the other cold steel thing I have? I've got the shovel and... Oh, it's the Gladius machete, isn't it? Only thing to bear in mind with cold steel, White Wolf, is they're very expensive for what they are. A lot of the swords over here are £300 for other companies that make swords, do them for 150 to 200. No, Anonymous Anglo, didn't you see my new big purchase, which I can't show you on the stream? It was a video from the other day. Gas masks, helmets. Oh, as in the PTM1 Soviet hood type mask, like the one that's up there, the white one. I've got the blue one somewhere, but I took it down on the stream and haven't put it back up yet, and it's probably got buried now. But yeah, for $20, they'd be quite good in the sense they give you a bit of protection. Yeah, there's a lot of other things, but it depends what you want to test, really, doesn't it? And also depends on the law of your country. I know the person said UK, but I know, for example, Vladimir is saying in Russia now you're not allowed to buy or sell like radium-painted compasses or dials. That's something they've now made illegal there. Not yet. We're having a takeaway a bit later, so I'll have some wine with that. No, wearing a hat with a gas mask will break the seal. Don't do it. All right, cool. One of the big Soviet civil defense ones. Yeah, they're cool. I'm trying to think, White Wolf, if there's anywhere in Europe that would just post to various European countries that do a big variety of swords, because Southern Swords is quite good for buying from the UK. Let me just link to them. Southern Swords. I don't know if they ship outside the UK, though, but I've bought from them a couple of times, and they stock quite a lot of brands of sword, essentially. Yeah, don't buy an Albion sword. They're like kind of getting a Ferrari of a sword world, you know. Hanwei are pretty good. They're a Chinese manufacturer, but they're like quite well made swords. Again, I'm not really enough into swords to tell you if certain brands, you know, have lots of known flaws of them. Because again, lots of people become very opinionated when they get too into it. You know, like I would never buy this brand sword, and this brand is like the only good brand kind of thing. Where I think probably most companies have made some shit ones in the past and some good ones. I mean, my favourite sword's the one I had Smith personally for me, but yeah. If you like the meta, you might be able to get a falchion of a very similar design. Because yeah, the cold steel ones are like several £100s on here. However, if you get a falchion, I think Windlass Steelcraft do quite a nice falchion that's similar to some of the mesas. The Thorpe falchion is pretty similar. So yeah, there's. Let me link you to some. I don't know if they ship to you, but they're at least something you can look into. So yeah, I've got a falchion, but the falchion I've got is like quite a lightweight style one. But yeah, if you look at these are pretty similar blade profiles to Messers. Yeah, Richard. Saying that though, when I paid to have my falchion smithed, the smith didn't charge all that much more than if I had a cold steel equivalent sword. So, you know, it was a tailored sword exactly how I wanted it, but for maybe £50 more. And for that, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? You go for the they're very falchionable right now. But yeah, that's the falchion I've got, and I can show this on stream because it's a sword, not a gun. YouTube logic. But yeah, so it's a much thinner blade profile because it's more like the sort of hanger sort of swords that falchions evolved into later on. Because falchions are like kind of early sabers. But yeah, this you can get ones like this, but with heavier blades. But this was done by what's the name of him? I'm trying to think of the bloke's name. Heron Armory. I can't remember the actual bloke's name who smithed it, but yeah, because the thing is, you could have the handguard on it you wanted. So I like the old sort of fighting handguards where it's got the sword trap on it, you know, like the knuckle duster type thing, all the bits to do that, the skull crushing pommel on it. And then of course you've got the actual sort of this one. I wanted it with the sort of quite good thrusting point on it, rather than it being one of the sort of broader chopping tips that can't thrust. But yeah, so it's a really nice falchion, but as I said, it was fairly expensive. But again, it's one of those things where if you want something like that, it's worth getting it. And Mike extended the scabbard for me because this wasn't a proper scabbard for this falchion. It was just the cold steel machete when I put it in. So he just. Yeah, but what sort of prices, Joe? Because there's lots of FM12s and S10s on eBay, but a lot of people don't want to pay $400 for them. Oh, that's cool. Let me look that one up, George. Russian Army R2 respirators. I don't recognise the name off the top of my head, but the price seems about right. So let's Google it. There's nothing coming up. Oh, R2 half face mask is this? Let's see. Does it have a mention of the R2 on this page? No. It's like one of those annoying things where it links to a page, and then when you go onto it, you can't find the one that was on there. Is it a half face or a full face mask? Yeah, put it in the Discord or load Discord up. Just PM at me, and then I can actually see what you're on about. Unfortunately, Adam, probably a lot on eBay. I'd say just go for a different mask at the moment. Hello, Peach. Oh, the SHR2 is in the... Is that the head wound one, similar to the SR1? Yeah, there's quite a lot of ones, because obviously there's things like the PY60, whatever it's called, half-face respirator with the... It's in surplus and gear, right? Let me have a look. Surplus and gear. Oh, it's a Y2K. Well, R2, is that the P2? Yeah, or R2, I think, is the older type one. Somebody who's really into Russian masks might be able to tell you the difference, but the head harness doesn't look like that, so I think that's just a Y2K. Like a U2K or Y2K mask. Which I did have one sitting right behind me. There it is. But there's different generations of these, some with better straps than others, some with technically a better mask rating. It's chemical resistant to an extent, Christopher. Most rubbers eventually will be eaten through by nasty enough chemicals. It's just how long they're chemical resistant. So, like, if you had little nitrile latex gloves, not really, because they're so thin. If you had a big latex, GP5 style mask, it would last a bit longer. But again, the weakest part of the mask will eventually be eaten through by a chemical. I've never used a C50. In theory, the C50 UFC is a newer mask, so it should be better, but I've never used it. I've only used the M50 and the FM12. I mean, personally, if my M50 was a C50, so the exact same mask just in 40mm, I probably would like that more than the FM12 CT12 style design. But because I've got the one that takes proprietary filters that are really hard to get, then, it's not a very good mask choice. Again, there's also the argument, isn't there, of if you're buying it for, like, a military, it's very different with procurement than if you're buying it for yourself, The Shums is absolutely fine, Yornan. I mean, obviously it's an old mask now, and depending on how it's been stored, some are going to be better than others. But in terms of you can use sights well with it, and I find it comfortable enough. I mean, if you hate GP5 style, helmet masks, you won't like it, but depends on Hakua Nawaz. Probably, sorry, horribly pronounced your name there, but depends on the type of rubber. For most rubbers, silicone lubricant, if it hasn't got additives, is very good. But then just keep it in a dry, cool place. That's price gouging, horribly marked, Wolf. But up to you. I can't tell you what to do. I mean, you'd also have to find somebody willing to pay that, and I don't think a sensible person would be willing to pay it. But what's an M61 V3? Oh, as in the Nokia M61 V3. Probably $30-40 at the moment, if it comes with the bag, is in good condition and everything else. Because again, you could charge more for it, but that might not sell. Whereas if you charged a reasonable price for it, somebody might buy it straight away, Ah, that's annoying. I got some Saturday Post here, Connor, so it must have been in your area, but hopefully I'll come Monday then. If you can hear the rain noise in the background, it's just I've got, like, ambient rain stuff on, just so it's you know, I didn't want to put music on because it's probably copyrighted, but just a rain sound. I figured if people could hear it in the background, it wouldn't annoy them too much. What sort of how do you know you've been encountering radiation in Abdus? I'm interested, but I don't really know what to suggest other than, you know, if in your day-to-day life you think you've come into ionizing radiation, you ought to probably tell the government or some sort of, you know, authority about it. Because if you know where it's from a check source, you know, or you know it's from a thing that nobody has any control over, that's one thing. If you suddenly went into a field and found, you know, quite a high dose, I'd probably be phoning a local authority about that. What spells P3 with your name, Henry? I'm confused now. I don't quite get you there, Dare. If I was doing a proper stream of background music, it would be using OBS, and then it would just be as like another audio overlay. But I just meant having, you know, just background noise with my headphones that aren't right next to the microphone. Does that make sense? Scroll up, Henry says. I'd get one for $25, Adam. I wouldn't use it for protection, but it's still a good price one. Oh, what, when you replied to email 215p and then it was P3, all right. Yeah. Remember, Jesus, as I've said, copyright. You literally can't use music on these, even if you use copyright-free stuff, royalty-free. Some dickheads still try and claim the copyright on them, which is why it's very, very rare. Even if I have access to royalty-free music, I use it in videos. The only time I, you know, disregard that is if it's something in the YouTube audio library, because then they've kind of already classified it as free to use public domain music. Yeah, well, that's been a thing for a while, UFC, MMA, just because with coronavirus, lots of people realised they could charge obscene prices for masks and filters. I don't know if I'd say it's the scariest White Wolf, but off the top of my head, one I always find a bit creepy is The Legend of Hell House. Hell House, like The Legend of Hell House, which is based on the book Hell House by Richard Matheson. It's a bit like The Haunting, but it's a much more psychological one, you know, rather than ghosts going boo. But again, it depends what scares you, because, you know, different people find different horror scary. So if you were somebody, for instance, that, you know, didn't find paranormal style films scary, you wouldn't find Hell House scary, you know, just as you wouldn't find he said, my garden has a high dose of radiation, don't know what's meant to mean or what it will do. My friend saw it would happen if you're exposed to radiation. It completely depends on the number. I mean, unless you've got a Geiger counter or something, Abdus, I don't know how you'd know that you're being exposed to it, because you can't taste or smell it. But say your garden does give off higher than background levels, I would get that looked into, you know, professionally, because I really wouldn't want to advise you on that, other than the fact that, yes, being around radiation for a long time is harmful. And the scientists can't agree on a number. Like, anything above background is considered to be bad for extended periods. How cool, you're going to play some Far Cry, are you, Gash Goblin? That's cool. I've watched Hereditary. I didn't watch Midsummer, the one they made after. I thought Hereditary was all right. It's just that I'd heard so many people creaming themselves over it that by the time I got around to watching Hereditary, I was like, oh, this is an all right film. But the problem is that everybody's, you know, been so bigging it up. I was just a bit disappointed. Yeah, the original The Haunting's very good, isn't it, Steve? But yeah, when it comes to radiation, it's basically, yeah, anything above background is potentially bad if you're going to be exposed to it non-stop. And then the higher the levels, the worse it is. Basically, of radiation, there's two categories. There's the sort of very, very high radiation levels, which lead to, you know, horrible, horrible things happening to you. That's not going to happen outside of a nuclear disaster kind of scenario. Or there's long-term exposure to higher levels than background radiation that leads to cancers and all sorts of illnesses. But a lot of it is just down to luck, I think, with radiation as well. John says, any chance of doing a tutorial on how to disassemble drinking port on MP5 ARFA gas mask? Have damaged ARFA, anything? I can look into doing that for you, actually, John. I've never really thought to do it, but I can see if I can dismantle the mask. Some masks require specialized tools to do it, which is why I've never really tried them. Because if you try and force it with regular tools, you can break them. But if it's something you can do easily enough and I look into it, I'll look into doing it for you. Right. Assuming there's something, so you've essentially had somebody go out with a Geiger counter and it's ticks higher than it should, right? So at the moment, obviously, the closest thing that's not, could have happened is, because it's happened to a lot of people, is that rain from the Chernobyl fires at the moment. So that could be, where some fallouts potentially come down from those fires in the Chernobyl forests. But otherwise, it could be just that there's more granite or something in your garden, because if there's granite with, radium in it, uranium, or thorium or in your garden somewhere, that's going to make a Geiger tick higher than background. There's videos in videos in Cornwall where people literally show just how weirdly high radiation can be in some areas. Massimo says LMT, is that the linear radiation theory? He said it's an overcautious model that makes kind of sense for workers, but in practice I'm not convinced it represents reality. Radiation, is that hormesis? Seems more representative. Can you sum those up quickly for people? Because I know there's different theories. There's like the one the more you're exposed to is always worse. Is that the linear one? And I know there's others where it's basically luck kind of thing, And then there's other people who think you have to hit a certain threshold before it's dangerous. But I think in reality we don't know is the answer to that, because there's so many conflicting theories. But I'd say the more you can avoid it, the better, unless you have a job or you have a, interest in it. Is that in the States, Infidel? Because over here you couldn't get an AR-15 delivered by UPS unless it was deactivated. At parts of the year, Oliver, we get like blackberries and that, so I sometimes pick those at that time of year, but that's not the time of year at the moment. No, I never really listened to the Kill White Wolf. I know they are, but I've never really listened to them. It could be Joshua or Joshua. Sorry, I'm not sure of your name if that's meant to say Joshua, but nobody knows at the moment, do they? Maybe the Chinese government knows, but they're not going to tell people. It could be an accidental leak of something from a level 4 lab. It could just have developed in a wet market. But Daniel has already sort of replied to you there. But I say at the moment we have no clue at the moment, because other than the CCP, and they might not even the CCP, that's the Soviets. The Chinese Communist Party, other than them, they're going to be the people who have the closest idea to what's gone on. They're not going to tell everybody. They can do, Kirk. I mean, if you have a lot of granite in your house, you'll get elevated radon levels in your house, because it just, in general, granite is more likely to contain uranium and radium, as far as I'm aware. It depends completely what was inside it, Abdus. If it had radionuclides inside its body, then yes, eating it would be very harmful. It completely depends on what stock is being sold in the surplus store, JL383. But in theory, yes, a lot of it could be defective. I mean, you can buy stuff brand new from stores that's not been made properly. So exact same thing can happen in the surplus store. And again, if it's old or whatever, it would be even worse. Massimo says, basically, up to a point, a small amount of radiation seems to be actually beneficial because it activates repair mechanisms in the cell, so they get rid of over the point it gets bad. This for external dose, internal contamination is bad, basically always. What is interesting, though, Massimo, is because Brazil nuts actually do contain trace amounts of radium, even to the stage with some Brazil nuts, you can hear an alpha probe tick on the Geiger counter if you put them right next to a Geiger counter. I always wondered if somebody ate Brazil nuts too much, would that actually lead to bone damage? due to the radium being absorbed into the bone. Like, I know eating Brazil nuts now and again, it would be such small amounts, it's not really going to matter. But I don't know if there's ever been any studies done on that. That's just why I'm interested. Because, yeah, you might be surprised with Brazil nuts just how much they might be radioactive in a sense. Probably because in a lot of countries they're in poorer neighbourhoods or whatever, so therefore don't get as good health treatment, diets, and all the other factors. Don't encourage him, Briggs. I'm sure the Phantom Shitter will be back. Yeah, well, if you remember originally, people were saying, oh, people in Africa can't get coronavirus. And that turned out to be completely false. It was just obviously a lack of test kits. I think it depends what they've been processed with, in all honesty, Gash Goblin, because I think there's some foods that, people have messed with which are completely fine. But then again, yes, there's other stuff that... Oh, yeah, I suppose you're right there, Massimo. With a lot of things, I keep forgetting that to eat an amount where, a bit like potassium, isn't it? That, is that K40 what you've put there, potassium? That, yeah, to get to the amount where there be radiation damage, you're probably overloading yourself on certain vitamins or nutrients you shouldn't have in that number. Carbon-14 is interesting, though, because of how little penetrating power it has, and it's in everything, isn't it? Because my carbon-14 sample is pretty interesting, because it came with the Stahlenspiegelrecht, or whatever it's called, that German radiation detector. I'll show you the one, for people who don't know. For anybody who might have this laying around. But these come with a carbon-14 check source inside them that swings into the ionization chamber, or it's essentially under the ion chamber with a little flimsy bit of plastic over it that breaks, and then you have to remove the sample because it contaminates the meter. Anyway, that's enough complaining about that meter. But the point is with that one anyway, that, yeah, it's interesting because internally it gives 3.5 Rontgen internal dose to the ionization chamber, yet carbon-14 is such a low, penetrating amount of beta radiation, a lot of my Geigers can't even pick it up through their case. I'm sure you'd be fine, preppers, but again, it always comes down to condition of it. It's, again, like we were on about the radiation stuff, it's, if you're doing something might be harmful to you in a very low quantity, I'd say it's probably fine, but if you wanted me to give you complete advice, it'd be not to do it. Let's hope she comes out fine, 11HHH30. Yeah, I wish her all the best, and I'm sure everybody else in the stream would, but... I mean, I don't know, because I think a lot of it ends up being, do you have anything that currently makes your immune system weak? But yeah, let's hope, that there's a lot of old people and that have survived it as well, so hopefully she'll be fine, but it's hard to say, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure it was a troll Abdus, because originally he did ask a question and I was trying to answer him, and I was saying, I was hoping it was somebody joking about, because I was hoping it wasn't somebody who'd eaten radioactive stuff. But then when he got blocked initially because he was making stupid comments, he came back with other accounts and kept asking him, so he's got to be a troll, Preppers in the wild, I would say if you've not got anything else and you had to use it for a short period, I would do it. Personally, if it was me, I would do it. Because I think in 30 minutes of using a filter like that, the probability that anything's going to leak and be inhaled and then stay in your lungs is going to be pretty low. There's, of course, a slight risk to it, but what you can do, get a piece of white paper, put the filter upside down, shake it over the white paper. If you see anything come out, then obviously it's leaking. Probably best not to use it. If it doesn't, you're probably all right. Thank you very much, Chris. He says, I am receiving a DP75. Hopefully it's Tuesday. Right. I hope it's guaranteed by the seller, because some DP75s have the broken meters on them, but otherwise they are excellent Geiger counters. I mean, they're a Geiger counter that doesn't show you the counts per minute or counts per second, which is a bit disappointing. But in terms of, like how good the measurements are you can take with them, how sensitive the beta tube is in it, and then how insensitive the gamma tube is for the doomsday levels of radiation. It's a lovely meter. You can charge your Soviet pen dosimeters in it as well by sticking them into the little port on the side, which is handy as well. So yeah, I love the DP75. It's great, but I know a lot of other people have said, they've bought them and they've been damaged. But in theory, if you buy one and it's only the screen that's damaged, it's probably very simple to swap the ammeter, like the display on it, out. You could probably even put a digital one on there. But because mine works fine, I'm not going to take it apart and risk that. If black specks have come out, preppers, I would personally say don't use it, because you could just be inhaling charcoal dust that isn't going to be good for your lungs. I've got a couple from the 1930s email, but it's hard to say which is going to be the oldest, because the dates have pretty much worn off some of them. But I've got like British interwar masks, or very early World War II masks. I've got things like the VM37, which is a 1937 German mask, but my one is probably not made in 1937. Bravo, we wanted to do that this year, and then thankfully now we couldn't have booked a holiday, because otherwise we'd have probably lost a load of money from it, like a lot of people have done with flights at the moment. Maybe next year then. KYNG is not a proper company. They rebrand other people's gear. And I've not got the 4A1 handy, so I can't show it you. But yeah, I think what they're doing now is actually rebranding Chinese rip-offs of the Israeli masks. They're not even rebranding Israeli masks anymore. I'd rather people didn't talk about certain firearms related things, so I'll put you in timeout for now. If you bring up anything again, you're blocked. Like that. Hopefully, you weren't doing it to be deliberately dickish, but some people do that on purpose because it's dodgy legal territory. But for people saying, what do the police do if they destroy guns? They go to a scrapyard after being crushed or like mangled or thrown into a furnace, That they're not gonna... the police are not going to start just fly tipping random bits of guns in random places. Yeah, VS, Chinese rip-off of an Israeli copy of a German mask. Yes, so it's a third-hand copy, essentially, of the, the Draeger Simplex? But yeah, if you go on AliExpress, you can actually find those Chinese rip-offs. From what I've heard, the Chinese rip-offs aren't too bad. But the point is, if you're going to buy one, don't buy it from a company that rebrands it. Just buy it directly from the Chinese, That's good. I'm getting a takeaway as soon as the stream ends, GZ, and having some wine. It's not particularly good wine. It's Prosecco, because I don't even like champagne. But we've got some in the cupboard, and it's the last bottle of old wine nobody wanted to be drunk up. So my dad and I are taking the sacrifice of drinking it. Because it looks cool, Arctic Fox Airsoft. But yeah, for the people who don't know, we try not to talk about stuff that could potentially be illegal or get people in trouble on here. Which is, I always try and give a little caveat to say, if I'm giving you advice, obviously check your local laws of anything first, because loads of things like this behind me have completely different legality around the world. The big one especially is... weirdly, gas masks. In some countries, you can't even legally own a gas mask. Indian takeaway 11HHH30. I haven't had a chicken pasanda, is it, in ages? So I think I might have a chicken pasanda, which is a bit like a korma, but a bit spicier. But I haven't had one in ages, so I quite fancy that. Yeah, I'll be shaving that bit, but yeah, it's going to be a job of being very, very careful not to accidentally do like that and then balance it out and then realize it looks like that and then go, no, it has to go. France, apparently, Peter. In France, you can own industrial style masks, but surplus masks are banned because they think they might be used by rioters or some shit. You'd have to ask the Americans there, Cole, if you mean actual firing ones. Because obviously in the UK you need a Section 1 or Section 2 FAC. So unless you're on about antique guns or the AK guns or whatever, I can't really help you there. Joseph says, thank you for your video. That's right. He said, I would to know army masks. Well, I've got a load of masks on the channel. If you look at the videos, I mean, some are military, some are industrial, some are just like civil made ones. Well, exactly, Massimo, they could. It's one of those stupid knee-jerk laws. You know, how lots of countries ban something because one person or a group of people do something stupid. And then the politicians pretend they're doing something. So I bet it's literally, oh, if we ban the army gas mask, they cannot do things. And then, of course, anybody who's French who knows what they're doing will just literally have a 3M style half face mask or a 3M full face mask or the equivalent. But, you know, it's one of those stupid laws that penalises people that just want to collect stuff. Well, in theory, they can with industrial masks. Absolutely fine, Henry. But yeah, the point is it seems completely stupid banning people from buying surplus masks when they can still buy the equivalent. It reminds me a bit of, you know, the countries that ban AR-15s, but you can own Mini-14s. You know, well both are semi-automatic rifles in, you know, 223 or 556. You know, there's not really any difference if somebody was shooting at you with them. Yeah, Daniel's given some very good advice there. But yeah, in the UK, you're not allowed firearms for self-defense unless, of course, you know, you're on some sort of police or, you know, like royal level of politician, you know, royal or politician level of protection program. But regular people are not allowed guns for self-defense. If you say that, you're not getting one, you know. But yeah, here's the thing, Peter, as we were saying, people are still allowed to buy industrial and like civil style masks. So they can still buy masks that block tear gas absolutely fine. They just can't buy the military style ones. I know which gun that is, Joe Mama. It's in Insurgency, isn't it? Or Insurgency Sandstorm. But yeah, it's a cool looking gun. I like Mini-14s and that. I mean, I'm not such a massive fan of the original M14. But yes, I've got two S10s, Ivan. They're good masks. But they're not the best masks anymore, you know. They're from the 1980s, so there's lots and lots of better masks than the S10 now if you had money to burn. But at the moment, I wouldn't recommend paying silly money that they cost. In theory, like, Burrito Man, here's the thing. In theory, you just can't apply for a license to say that. You can look at a lot of court cases over here where somebody's had their house broken into, somebody's been shot in self-defense, and they've been cleared of it. Obviously, it's not a recommended thing to do, and it's not something I'd really want to talk about on this channel too much. But the point is that it's not as straightforward. A lot of it is sort of considered to be what they call reasonable, you know, reasonable force or whatever else. They're meant to be in France, at least according to a lot of my French subscribers. They said you're not allowed to buy military masks, but I suppose that means surplus stores might not be allowed to stock them, you know, and whatever else. But I'm sure you can still get them on eBay now and again, and nobody stops you, you know. It probably is completely possible, but I have no idea how you do it, FDS man. Probably ask somebody better into electronics than me. But in theory, if it's just a radio, most radios are just going to be a couple of wires, aren't they? So you could cut, if you had some spare ones, and, you know, I'm not going to massively recommend it, but you could probably get some wire clippers, cut the end off, and then rewire it yourself. I don't see why it would be too much of a problem. Lots of old things like that can be rewired pretty straightforwardly, because a lot of things are just a positive and negative wire, or potentially a positive, negative, and a ground wire, aren't they? They're not all that complicated. If, you know, in terms of how electronics work, I rewired a plug today, you know, that was just something with two wires, and rather than attaching it to my variable voltage supply, I thought, right, it's meant to be up to 230 volts, so I've got an old plug here, so let's take it apart, put the wires back in, plug it in, oh look, it works, you know. As I've already said, preppers, I'd advise you not to wear it. If you've worn it already, I wouldn't worry, but I wouldn't carry on using a leaking filter. I wasn't on about Tony Martin, Daniel, but unless you were talking to somebody else. But there has been cases, if you look them up, of people like using shotguns on robbers and being cleared of it. But like I said, it's not something I'd recommend. And the police watch my channel, so I definitely wouldn't recommend it. There you go. The only thing I can think of, Magnificent Bar Steward, is maybe tape a little packet of silica gel inside, you know, like these. If you taped one inside somewhere, that would do a very good job, you know, absorbing moisture. You don't have anything to be scared about, preppers and the wild. You'll be absolutely fine. I'm just saying, just for peace of mind, don't keep using it, because then that's more and more percentage chances of you maybe inhaling something that does damage you. But you'll be absolutely fine. You know, I know loads of people who've worked, you know, with dangerous substances that you can inhale, and you know they've all been fine, and they'd have way more exposure than you get from a little bit of a GP5 filter. As I've already said, Pez candy dispensers, let's not ask questions like that, please. You'll get a timeout. Ask something like that again, you get a ban. Because it always sounds to me when people ask like that, they're asking of a way to try and circumvent a law. Now, I'll be going off in like 5 minutes, so no, I'm not putting a mask on. For me, Henry, I'm normally size 2 or 3. Size 2 is a bit tight. Size 3 can be a bit loose. It also depends on the mask, because obviously some have lost their elasticity over the years. And for example, the Soviet PMG I find is tighter than every other Soviet mask of the same size. So, oh, he's back. He's back. So he was asking sensible questions for most of the stream, and then he started spamming. So to start with, it was, you know, could I actually legit give him help? Again, wasting my time over radiation in this garden or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden it turns into, oh, I've got green poo, it's radioactive. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, there's a radioactive poo man who's been spamming every stream for like maybe the past couple of weeks or something. He comes on and keeps asking weird like scat questions to do with radiation and shit. You know, it's obviously a fetish. He's got a cross wire somewhere, but I'm not really the person to help him with that. Yeah, but as I said, Daniel, he's blocked now, because it's just the same person who comes back with an account after account to just waste our time. It wasn't any higher for me the other day, Peter. On Thursday, I did find some soil outside that was slightly higher than background, but that was it. It wasn't enough to, you know, even conclusively say anything, because all I knew, an inch under the soil, there was maybe a little bit of uranium or something. You never know, but... Yeah, and the main reason it's annoying for me, 11HHH, is because when people spam the chat, they stop other people asking questions. And if I'm looking at the, you know, stream for questions to answer, when you get a spammer, they, you know, waste your time essentially, because I might miss out on answering a question for somebody who legit wants to know something, and then they're just doing it because they think it's a laugh to talk about radioactive shit, you know. Yeah, no, there's no way around it. Email. The thing is, it's all the block system really does is it just stops people commenting on that account. It doesn't even do that actually, because I know if you block somebody, they can reply to other people's comments on your videos. So quite often you'll get like the really abusive people who still keep coming on and then arguing with other people. Yep, you can get, as far as I'm aware, pretty much any gun if it's in 22 long rifle. It's been rechambered to it, GZ, or however your name's pronounced. Yeah, semi, but again, a lot of people don't go to the trouble of getting it, and again, they cost more than Ruger 1022, so most people don't have an interest. Yeah, I've used Neo 16 filter before briefly. I wouldn't recommend it, but I mean, what you can do, Daniel, and I've got this set up, is you can have like a list of slurs. So I mostly have racial slurs in it, and like homophobic. I was going to say homeophobic, but I don't mean homeo, like homeopathy. I mean homophobic. I've got like a load of slurs like that, so if people try and paste them, it automatically blocks their comment or holds it for review, and then you can check, you know, if it was just where somebody said something and for whatever reason it held it for review, or if they were genuinely trying to be a prick. But yeah, there's no way of stopping people spamming. You used to be able to do slow mode, but I don't think you can do it anymore. Slow mode was actually a really good function because it meant somebody couldn't spam the same question. You could like say every 20 seconds they could post a new one. 3M6000s are fine. Do you mean the half-face ones or the full-face variant? I've never used the full-face one. People seem to like them. The half-face 3M6000s are good. I was thinking more of homeopathy, Alex, as in, you know, the bullshit, like radium bromotom. Eat some radium and it will cure your eczema. Oh, wait, it's also killed you. You know, that kind of thing. Have some very diluted arsenic to cure you or something. But how do you do it, Trent? Because every time I've looked at the stream options, it's never been there. I mean, it's probably that they've just hid it somewhere else on YouTube and you have to go and look for it. Yeah, I reckon some of them are probably inspired by the original one, Briggs, but, you know. Yeah, I've had lots of offers like that, Levi, and thank you very much. But, yeah, I'm sure lots of people know that watch my videos a lot. I do like American culture. You know, don't surrender it because you won't get it back, sadly. You'll be like us. But, anyway, I'll be off now because, you know, like I said, I'm going to have dinner. But email says GP5M versus Shums. I love the Shums already, but I feel like the GP5M will be a bit better for me. Shums is better for guns, as in looking down sights or binoculars. The GP5M does give you a slightly wider field of view, though. Voice diaphragm-wise, are identical. Oh, and thank you very much, 11HHH30. Oh, right. When I go out, I mean, that'll be when I go out, but I've got a big case of mead that I bought recently, and that's lovely stuff, but kicked my ass last time I drank it, I tell you that, because the mead I normally have is like 11%. So then when I was having this one, because it was like 15 or 16%, you know, per glass, you're getting a lot more units quickly. And because it's mead is really sweet, it doesn't taste like alcohol. So you don't really pace it. You can quite quickly, you know, start knocking it back. Although I try to savor the flavor of it, you know, but sometimes, yeah, because with a lot of wines, the percentage can be quite high compared to how alcoholic they taste. You know, so some of them are actually find it faster to drink than bitters. And then, yeah, it'll hit you. Especially if it's like where you've had a load of food in your stomach. You know, that goes through and then all of these sudden the alcohol seems to activate. Depends how much you drink there and how you act when you're on it. If you're horrible to other people after you've been drinking, then yeah. If you're nice to other people, yeah, and I still think people should have the right to do what they want with their own bodies, you know. And again, if you only have a sensible amount of units every day or every week, you know, there's still no consensus on if that's good or bad for you. Anyway, thank you very much. And thank you to the other person as well that donated earlier in the stream. I do appreciate it. And yeah, stay safe, everybody, and see you all. I'll stream tomorrow at some point. Don't know the exact time yet. I kind of want to do an earlier afternoon one, but I don't know exactly when yet. Also will depend on what I've got on tomorrow. But yeah, see you. Have a good evening, everybody. Goodbye.